for Skeena-Balkley Valley.
Madam Speaker, if I'd had my full time, can you only imagine the speech I would have given? I thank my colleague from Victoria for splitting his time today. I want to say I looked forward to this debate. The NDP, we chose in one of what are called our Opposition Day motions to raise this important issue, and I think the context is very important. As we now learn, the government just a couple of weeks from now will be unveiling their budget to Canadians. And a budget, as it is for any Canadian family, for any business, as it is true for a government, is about making choices. Now, we know that the Liberal budgets have been awash in very large debt. It was promised at $10 billion. It goes up $30 billion or more. So we know the budget is likely to be awash in red ink, as they say. And you would think in a moment like that the emphasis on actually going after money owed to the government would be of the highest priority. Because wouldn't it be better to go get the money from those wealthy Canadians and corporations who are just cheating? They're just simply breaking the law. Would be the first priority before you heap on more debt onto the backs of future generations of Canadians. Now, we know from such credible sources as the Conference Board of Canada that the tax gap is enormous. It's hard to even comprehend, $47 billion per year. You pull back from that and say, we have a finance minister who's priding himself on being the minister of no, rejecting money that would make up the funding gap for First Nations education, not supplying a sufficient amount of money for clean drinking water for every Canadian, not saying that affordable pharmacare for seniors and those on fixed incomes, it's just not an option, say the Liberals, because we just don't have the money. And it's like, well, did you look? Did you check the cushions on the sofa to see whether there might be something hiding? And in fact, lo and behold, we know there is money that is hiding. Now, this has been going on for years, Madam Speaker, and the Liberals are aware of it. And even in the last election, they said something like the following. At a time of high deficits and growing inequality between the richest Canadians and middle-class families, this is a disproportionate benefit for the wealthy. What were they talking about? Well, this little tax loophole that costs the Canadian government $700 million a year, right, in stock options, which the Liberals also admit in their platform, both times, 2011 and 15 again, that it is overwhelmingly going to the wealthiest Canadians. This is not about entrepreneurship and that go-get attitude that we want to incentivize. We do want to incentivize that. That's not how this loophole is being used. And that's what the NDP motion addresses today. We thought the Liberals were going to address it in their last budget. Why? Well, because they promised to. They said we would. They'd put a cap on these tax avoiders who are being very aggressive, as they say, with their taxes. And there seems to be a disturbing pattern within the Liberals that if you're well-connected, if you're able to fork over $1,500 for a cocktail to rub elbows with the PM, so to speak, that if you can host them at a private island, well, then your issues rise to the top. And this issue, the finance minister we know was lobbied on. And the wealthy Canadians said, please don't take away this loophole. We love it. We're able, on average, to forego $400,000 a year in taxes. Not bad. And I guess the $1,500 a ticket to a Liberal fundraiser is worth it if you just do a quick cost benefit. We also know, and we've mentioned it in this motion, it's something that we want to aggressively get at, is the many tax evasion, tax avoidance that comes under a number of rubrics that Canada has become infamous for, not famous for, infamous for. That we saw in the Panama Papers, where it was suddenly the curtain was pulled back and all this international manipulation of tax regimes was exposed. And what was Canada's role in that? What reputation did we have? It's called snow washing. It's a new term we've come across, where these accountants, international accountants, were advising their international clients, you don't want to pay tax? Have we got a jurisdiction for you? It's called Canada, where you don't have to declare the ownership of the company. You can go under a numbered account. If you don't live in Canada, you can set up your company in Canada and declare your profits in another country. And it's the perfect place. It's the perfect place if you want to set up your real action in Barbados, St. Kitts, wherever it happens to be, that you actually wanted to declare your income because you won't pay any tax on it. All you got to do is use Canada's reputation, use the weak and vague laws that we have over corporate governance in this country to hide that money. And we saw this also in the KPMG scam, and there's no other word for it. Even Revenue Canada had the ability to call it what it was. They got away with it for 13 years. 13 years, KPMG was advising clients in Canada. Do you want to pay taxes and you're a millionaire? Well, go ahead, but if you don't, cut KPMG a check and we'll get your money to a little place called the Isle of Man. It's famous for a concert. It's also famous for all these fake companies that get set up. And Canadian millionaires hired KPMG to set up the scam. And when it was finally discovered, and this was starting to unravel internationally, let's compare what happened in the U.S. as compared to happen here. The Senate called hearings. A $500 million fine was put upon KPMG. They had to admit guilt. 3 people were charged criminally, and KPMG had to admit that, yeah, this is exactly what they did. Let's flip it over to the Liberal-dominated committee here. And for those who want to listen to the entire story, the CBC's The Current Radio had this all playing out, and it will drive you crazy, Madam Speaker, as it did my constituents who wrote me and said, all we expect is basic fairness. But when these wealthy Canadians avoid paying their taxes, it's the rest of us that have to pick up the tab. The rest of us who follow the rules. And every MP in this House, I will wager, has a horror story of some working-class Canadians, some middle-class Canadians the Liberals say they're obsessed over, going through an interaction with the CRA, with Canada Revenue Agency, that ends very badly, regardless of whether the person was in the right or in the wrong. The power of the CRA is incredible. So what happened in Canada when this KPMG scam was exposed? No one denying it was going on. Tens, hundreds of millions of dollars were being sent offshore and then gifted back to these millionaire families. Wow, they are such generous people. They just simply moved all their money to the Isle of Man, paid KPMG $100,000, and then were gifted back the money. What a wonderful world these people occupy, where they make so much money that they feel it is their right and obligation to not actually pay any taxes for the roads and the services and the hospitals that we so cherish. Now through all of this, Liberals have said, well, we've put money into this, and we're getting at it. Could you give me perhaps a warning, Madam Speaker, as to when you think? Well, okay, that's all right. Obviously, the Liberals need to back up the rhetoric, back up their promises with actual action, go after the tax cheats, get the money that we're all owed so the Canadians can finally have the services and the economy that we deserve. Thank you very much.
All right.